restless nights, coffee houses, clubs and neon lights. I rock the people my way, working my way, coming back to you. Working my way, coming back. Take me home tonight, not wasting any time. Highway 95, engines on overdrive. From town to town, and in between, I see you in the morning light. New York, Boston, Philadelphia, LA, I still see your face. Buses roll, distance grows, but I remember you're just a dream away. Working my way, coming back to you. Working my way, coming back. Take me home tonight, not wasting any time. Highway 95, engines on overdrive. From town to town, and in between, I'll see you in the morning light. Light on as I drive on, singing our song. The light on as I drive on, singing our Take me home tonight, not wasting any time. Highway 95, engines on overdrive. From town to town, and in between, I see you in the morning light. Take me home tonight, not wasting any time. Highway 95, engines on overdrive. From town to town, and in between, I see you in the morning light. Take me home tonight, not wasting any time. Highway 95, engines on overdrive. From town to town, and in between.
Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to What Are the Odds with Barnes and Baris. I am one half of your show, host Rich Baris, People's Pundit. Robert will be joining us shortly, but before he does, let's just roll into the intro here. All right, last week, the media meltdown over the weekend was something to behold, and we're going to go over that. But last week, Kyle Rittenhouse was acquitted on all charges of what was portrayed in the media as the murdering of 3 black men. Of course, that's not what happened. They were all white, 2 of which perished, and we will go over that. Regardless, I can't wait till Robert comes on and we can talk about what we both think happened here. But I think after 3 more than 3 days of deliberation, there was a little bit of nervousness around Kyle supporters and people, frankly, not even as supporters, but people who wanted to see the correct verdict. If you watched the trial, right, it's amazing to me how we can have a trial basically minute by minute, second by second, hour by hour, day by day, and people are just incapable of peeling off their ideological biases and watching it for themselves. If you still think that MSNBC is portraying accurate information to their viewers, you have to grow up. I don't know what to tell you other than this, what I've been saying now for days, and even before the verdict came out. I do this for a living. If you watch MSNBC, you are the most ignorant among us. Do you like that title? Do you enjoy it? And even after we went through all of this live, candid count for everyone to see, you can see how we have a certain class of politicians. Many of these people, these activist groups, the ACLU, what you name it, they know they're lying to you. You're the only one who still doesn't know. Anyway, let's watch the moment the verdict came.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty.
All right, for real now.
Not guilty. As to the fourth count of the information, Anthony Huber, we, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty. As to the fifth count of the information, Gage Grosskreutz, we, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty.
Members of the jury, are these your unanimous verdicts? Is there anyone who does not agree with the verdicts as read? Would you wish the jury polled? No. Okay. Okay, folks, you're...
Yeah, we can end that there. I just wanted to show that because, the LeBron Jameses of the world and the other idiots, the Huffington Post or whoever ran along with it, the crocodile tears of white supremacy, MSNBC, you're pieces of what I can't say on a YouTube video. Robert will shine some light on this, and he should. He did a great job going on Laura Ingraham on Friday and beginning to do what I think Kyle Rittenhouse will have the chance to do tonight on Tucker, even though there really is, like the old saying goes, no place you can go to get your reputation back. He will forever be in danger, at least for the foreseeable future, by people who are used by those who wish to prey on their ignorance for their own personal or professional or political gain. But he will be able to do, I think, what Roberts, did a great job doing on Friday, which was tell his own story. Did that look like a white supremacist murderer, multiple murderer, killer, with no conscience, how they portrayed this kid? Basically a modern day Klansman gunning down poor black civil rights protesters. None of that was true. Nothing was true. Here's what else isn't true. Those were crocodile tears. When Robert comes on, I'm going to ask him to tell you. This kid spent his initial days in prison and even after. It's a long road, man, to take a human life, let alone for a teenage kid. Unless you're a nutcase, it's a long road back to sanity after you do that. You not only killed somebody, but you snuffed out their life. You took everything they ever were and everything they ever will be. And if you're an idiot who offered commentary, like it was crocodile tears and this kid cried and puked for days and days and days. And people said what they had to say about him. It's outrageous. Funny thing, MSNBC, among the worst, never to be outdone by anybody, for sure. But NBC's no better. CNN only acted how they acted on Friday because they're afraid of getting sued. We learned this, we learned that. We also learned during the trial, no, they knew they lied on purpose. Because that's who they are and that's what they do. Here's Lester Holt that night on NBC Nightly News. Watch this. You might miss something here.
In Kenosha, Wisconsin, still no verdict tonight in the homicide.
And excuse me, this was Thursday night. Watch this.
In Kenosha, Wisconsin, still no verdict tonight in the homicide trial of Kyle Rittenhouse. Our Gabe Gutierrez is there, and the judge sending the jury home after a third day of deliberations. Gabe?
Yeah, that's right, Lester. The jury has been deliberating for about 23 hours, but still no indication they're close to a decision or whether this could be a hung jury. Today, once again, a small group of demonstrators gathered outside the courthouse here. Several schools in Kenosha have closed and switched to virtual learning in anticipation of a possible verdict. Rittenhouse faces 5 felony counts for shooting and killing 2 men and wounding a third during unrest in Kenosha last year. He says he acted in self-defense. The jury has already asked to replay video evidence in this case, and the defense has also asked the judge to declare a mistrial. No ruling yet, Lester.
All right, Gabe Gutierrez, thank you.
Hat tip Newsbusters. You forget something, Lester? Did you forget that your network was banned from the courtroom from trying to chase the jury bus? You just forgot that? That didn't make the cut in the NBC? This is the guy who replaced Lion Brian Williams, who fabricated all sorts of stories about Iraq, floating bodies during Hurricane Katrina. This is supposed to be the temple of truth to win back their credibility. Speaking of the guardians of truth, this is PolitiFact, who we all know, and I know this from personal experience. If you follow me, then you know I can't stand these people. These people lie on purpose. I'm going to hammer this over and over and over. I'm still waiting for my correction from PolitiFact. Even Snopes fact-checked their lie about me. And yet they don't issue corrections to these lies because their job is to lie, under the pretext that they are actually the arbiters of truth. It's incredible. We have to chip away at this stuff. They're a smear operation. That's it. Here's Donald Trump's fact check by PolitiFact. Donald Trump says video shows Kyle Rittenhouse, the 17-year-old charged with killing 2 protesters in Kenosha, quote, was trying to get away from them, fell, and then they violently attacked him. Folks, there are still people who believe PolitiFact's right here. This was a demonstrably true statement. We had a trial. The video footage is what saved this kid's life. If there wasn't video footage, there at the very least, we could almost be assured there would have been horse trading between charges that they would have been able to decide amongst each other that they could accept. Well, I don't want to stick this on him, but I'd be willing to give this, and I'd be willing to bend here and bend that. And the next thing you know, Kyle's doing 10 years, maybe with another 5 thrown on top of it, because there's not video footage. All there are is poisoned jury pools who have been listening to garbage like this for over a year. PolitiFact Wisconsin and AP Fact Check had identical fact checks to this. Identical. They're all full of crap. And they do it on purpose. Where's the correction? Where's the correction? If they really cared about misinformation and they cared about their own credibility as the arbiters of truth, they would have gone back and said at the time of our initial fact check, our claim review, the information we had seemed to indicate that wasn't the whole story. But after a thorough review of the evidence and a week of a friggin' trial, over weeks, but about a week reviewing that evidence, the jury requested that evidence. That was the linchpin. If that jury did not have video footage that they lied about, then that clearly the one juror who had a problem was skeptical, would have had a stronger argument to make. Going into this, if you believed in the right to self-defense, which this this case was really all about, Kyle is you could call him mixed race, but whatever. Let's keep to the class element here. He is on the lower end of the socioeconomic, ladder, lower end of the spectrum. He is not some rich white kid. The system was designed to guard him from being convicted of murder. He had no money to defend himself until there were public funds raised for him. He had no friends in Kenosha, clearly. He had a prosecutor who lied about him, lied about the case, put two people on the stand whom he knew were lying. They perjured themselves, and the prosecutor knew they were perjuring themselves. You know what? We got Robert here. I heard the bing. Let me just bring him in instead of me just ranting. Because this is the whole idea. Like Kyle, some rich white kid with privilege, is total bunk. Robert, you know what I really want to tell people here? Because after that verdict was read and Kyle broke down, because of the conversations you and I had, I can't say it. I might get banned. Like words were not enough for me in some of these instances, looking at people like LeBron James and all these other idiots on MSNBC. This kid, it's hard for anybody to take a human life. This kid, the idea this was crocodile tears and he's just some rich white privileged kid was always such a lie. It was so false. It angered me because the kid was in such bad shape in the beginning. And, it makes me sick to my stomach to listen to these idiots, man.
Yeah. He had a similar breakdown at the Antioch interview. That's, videotape. People can find it. It's out there. He didn't go into he didn't respond in detail in that interview, but you can see the same pre-PTSD conditions. It was, diagnosed at the jail that he was held for extradition purposes because he was vomiting every night for weeks and weeks after the incident. So and anyone who knows anything about PTSD would know that saw the signs right away. So like Viva, when he was watching it live, was like, oh, wow, that's PTSD. And he didn't know. I hadn't told him anything about the background. So he didn't know that. He could just spot it right away. And so it's extraordinary that people would try to convert that into something else. But they're so pre-committed to a certain narrative about these cases, they have difficulty budging off of that narrative, even when it's proven false. And so but the jury got to see it in live time. People that were watching got to see it in live time, and it's why these trials we should have more video broadcast trials rather than fewer. Because you're mentioning the jury could have been misled, but for the live video evidence of what took place. The same is true of the people watching. In other words, the what if we did not have videotaped access, live broadcast access, and independent media content creators giving commentary to this trial? So because Allison Morrow did a good breakdown. I think Matt Orfeo, maybe mispronouncing his last name. Mispronouncing, people get on me for saying pronunciate, but it's a word. Look it up.
It's a word.
But basically, she was showing that the biggest thing and one of the biggest moments in the entire trial was Gage Grosskreutz admitting on cross-examination that Kyle looked at him and then did not pull the trigger when his hands were up, but it was when Grosskreutz was pulling the gun and putting it at his head that he pulled the trigger. So it was one of the biggest moments of the entire trial.
Right.
However, if you followed the media's version of events that day, it was buried. It was not in there. It was Gage Grosskreutz testified, "I thought I was going to die." That was the headline. It was all so the massive. Maybe now people understand in part why I say OJ was innocent. It's because OJ was also a case where there was a massive discrepancy between how the media covered the trial on a day-to-day basis and what you actually saw if you were watching the trial, like the juror, if you were a substitute juror, seeing the same things the jurors were saying. You saw a totally different case in court than you saw being presented in the media.
Absolutely.
And people are just seeing, people got to see in live time the incredible discrepancy between what they could see with their own eyes and ears, just like the jury got to see something different than what the media had been representing going into the trial, with the trial. And it's why federal court should open up trial proceedings to live video broadcasting, because everybody has a constitutional right to access the courts. That's not physically possible in the modern age because of the limited physical space in a courtroom. Yeah, but it is possible technologically in the modern age. So there's simply no excuse for the federal courts to continue to keep people in the dark and allow the media to be the gatekeepers of what happens. Like Ghislaine Maxwell's trial that's ongoing right now. We have to rely on the media's interpretation of events. And I saw this and experienced this firsthand during the Snipes case, because there again, they weren't allowed to video broadcast it. And depending on what your media source was, you might be totally misled as to what was happening inside that courtroom.
Yeah, the Ocala Star-Banner alone, which normally local is good, but I remember that. I remember reading the Ocala Star-Banner. It was totally, they wanted to fry your client, man, and that's it. It was...
the mainstream media was even worse.
They typically are,
institutional people, the local television broadcasters, etc. But though they were not as bad as they were in the Rittenhouse case.
Yeah.
The ridiculous disparity between what was happening in court, what was happening in the courtroom was just incredible. You highlighted the worst, most egregious example of a fact check these people did. What's amazing is they also were saying it was clearly illegal for Kyle to have the gun when it was always legal for him to have the gun. And even after the court declares that, PolitiFact says, well, our opinion is still right. Which,
yeah.
They're
they
just
don't
liars.
change.
All these fact checkers are just a joke. They're just a way for the left to pat themselves on the back and convince themselves of their moral superiority to everybody. They're a complete
that's
fraud.
right.
Bill Gates. A lot of the health fact checkers get their biggest donations from Bill Gates. So of course they're going to cover for Bill Gates. They're just a corrupt institution. What it is more and more people are getting to see that in live time. Because, I did an interview with Michael Malice, and Malice hadn't researched the Rittenhouse case at all. And he'd seen little bits and pieces.
Yeah, that was a great interview.
Yeah. And he was just like, this can't be real, what you're describing.
Yeah.
This is even nuts for Malice, who's an anarchist and believes the whole system is a fraud. But it was, of course, I was understating things rather than overstating things. It's because of how nuts it was. And you're right. Had this not been caught live on videotape, given the poor jury selection that the defense did, given the mediocre representation at trial the defense did, given the corruptibility and corruption of the prosecution and the corruption of the press, their collusion and if the audience had not got involved, if the people had not got involved, the court of public opinion not got involved, Kyle wouldn't have even been released pending trial. He would have been imprisoned because he couldn't have come up with $2 million bail, cash. And so it was thanks to that being on videotape and thanks to people in the court of public opinion making a difference, ultimately that led to his acquittal, in my view. Because without that, it probably would have been mistrials. They put on the jury. Now we can discuss our polling because the case is over.
Yeah, now it's over.
Done.
Yep.
They put on the jury the foreperson who was literally the profile of the worst possible juror. Can you imagine that? Not only did they put leaders on the jury that were bad, they put the leader on the jury that was the worst.
And Mark Richards told the media in his parading around to CNN and him, by the way, going to CNN, his client's enemy, running to CNN to berate and put down his client's ally, who is Tucker Carlson and others who gave him a fair shot. He told them that he thought the jury was good. They had a great jury for this case.
Yeah, but obviously he didn't believe that during trial because he moved for a retrial midway through jury deliberations.
Yeah, he was honest and
after the fact. He clearly had no clue what jury he had picked. He thought
he was honest the first time. Yeah, he was honest the first time, Robert. After the first day, he said in his immediate press conference, I got nervous after the first day. This jury taught me how to be patient. But he was concerned what all the rest of us were concerned about, which is very clearly from those notes. They thank God for Kyle, better thank his lucky stars and praise the Lord above that they had that footage, because that footage was what she was centered on, man. That footage is what allowed her to say, okay, in my mind. And that's what happened, and I know it. And by the way, I was going through my old notes with Casey Anthony, and there were a lot of people who were textbook authoritarians, but Ashton lied to them in the middle of the trial and got caught in a lie. And I can't help but to wonder, you had Binger and all these others, they knew they were putting people on the stand who would perjure themselves. They knew they were giving incorrect jury instructions. I could go on and on and on. When you lie to a jury, even one who wants to defer to you as the authority figure, And you can see that by her referring to how the fire extinguisher played out. She used the prosecution's version of events, not the defense's. So obviously she wanted to, but maybe, I don't know. I don't know what the law is over there, whether they'll be allowed to talk sooner rather than later. But I can't wait. It'll be fascinating because I wouldn't be at all surprised if, that the lying on the part of Krause and Binger did him in.
Well, I mean, they lied a lot throughout the trial, and the problem is they even lied about things that the video refuted.
I'm
And
going to
that was
show
the-
you he was shot in the back by Kyle,
exactly.
chasing him.
And that with Grosskreutz, that he had lied to Grosskreutz and said he didn't shoot anyone and he pretended to be police. That's not what's on the tape. So all of it was just constantly. That's why this was a simple case. You just play the video. Notably, by the way, if Kyle's testimony had helped, they would have asked to have had some of his testimony read back, which they could. They didn't. They didn't, as you point out, they didn't ask for any testimony to be read back to them, which a jury can't. They didn't ask for any other demonstrative exhibits to be shown to them. All they asked for was the
experts, the use of force expert,
nothing.
nothing
None of that. It was just what's the video, and because the video is what acquitted him. And now I think the problem for the foreperson that was the holdout was one, is somebody like that going to hold out when they know they can't get convictions? Because what our polling showed was that convictions on the top counts were very low likelihood. That was almost never going to happen. It was
horse
more
trading
likely
was
that
really
you would either get a mistrial, split verdict on some reckless endangerment charge, which that was removed once jump kick man never showed up in court. Once the gun charge was out, that was the easiest compromise verdict, so that they couldn't go there. And once the court said that if there was self-defense as to Rosenbaum, there was self-defense as to McGinnis, that removed the possibility of any real likelihood of a split verdict. All it was are we going to retry this thing, or are we going to get acquittals? And had they read the jury right, had they picked the right jury, that would have been a 2-hour acquittal, maybe an hour acquittal. The first day, 8 of the jurors wanted to start deliberations at like 4:30 in the afternoon. That's a group of jurors that thinks they'll be done by 5:30 and home. That's what that is. So there were 8 jurors. If they'd picked the right jury, they would have had 12 that would have gone along quickly. And they would have been
that's true by Mark Richards' own statements. So it's not like Robert's pulling this out of thin air, folks. The defense team promised this kid an hour or two acquittal. That's what they promised him. And even he went out after the verdict, and Kyle was secured and brought out of the facility and on the road. He went out and dealt with the press, and he made very clear that they all started to get very nervous, that there was that horse trading on that lesser charge, Robert, once the gun was thrown out and the other one was, that's still, was that 10 years maybe? I mean, it's not exactly like a real compromise.
Not likely to issue a sentence on it, but the risk of split verdicts were really way down given the way the instructions ended up working. So it was really just, if they had read the jury right, if they'd actually reviewed the data that we sent them, they would have known that never to request a mistrial without prejudice. Now, that was their worst case scenario, was that would happen because someone would hang the jury. But but they were never at risk of meaningful convictions the way the case flushed out. And so the only risk was mistrial versus full acquittals, having to retry the thing. And they gave the prosecution a free bite at complete retrial midway through, not knowing, given how bad they misread the jury, not knowing that there had already been multiple acquittals by the jury. All those acquittals would have been lost if the mistrial would have been granted. That would have just vanished into thin air, those records and that information. So thankfully, even a semi-competent defense team could not screw up this case because of two things, primarily the video footage, but also the court of public opinion by ordinary people, because that's what allowed him to have bail money in the first place. That's what allowed him to have he would have had a legal defense no matter what, but that's what allowed him to have bail money, which would have been very important. And that's what allowed a lot of those jurors to know it, because, now we can just, from our polling data, jurors who followed independent media and did not trust the institutional media were the best jurors for Kyle. Now, they didn't even ask questions about that, but if you got a random jury out of Kenosha a third of the jurors were going to be jurors who were already supporting Kyle because they had reviewed independent media. And what that independent media is thanks to everybody in the audience and around the world that came to bat for Kyle. So it's an important reminder about how important the court of public opinion is. If 12 people had gone in there believing the institutional narrative, it's likely a mistrial, even with all the overwhelming evidence in his favor, because there would have been more people willing to hold out. It would have been like the defense thought it was. The defense thought it was a 6-6 split and that they were trending towards conviction because they misinterpreted the fact that the foreperson was the bad juror. So they look at those questions and the phraseology and the terminology and even the forensic handwriting. If you look at that, you're like, that juror's against us. And they projected, like the prosecution did, that the foreperson represented and reflected the rest of the jury.
Everybody else, right.
Whereas if they had studied our data, they would have known there was no chance that was the case.
And that was what was always good for him, Robert. 90% plus of the time. Because I tweeted that right before when there was announced the verdict, he came in. I just tweeted out, I said, look, you never know, but more than 9 in 10 will fold to the majority, even people like her. And that looks like that was, but I'm not sure that would have happened if there wasn't video. Because I'm telling you, that video, she was centered on that video.
Would have happened. But for the court of public opinion on independent content creators and the ordinary person spreading the message, because that's how 4 people got on the jury, at least 4, that came in knowing Kyle was innocent and knowing the evidence would confirm it, and so they were ready to fight for Kyle, and that meant that they weren't going to be pushed around. So it was a combination of the video evidence and people arguing in the court of public opinion through independent media that gave Kyle a fighting chance from the get-go. And then they just had to not completely screw it up at trial because he had a favorable judge. So it was going to be hard to do that. And the prosecution didn't take jury selection seriously. And the defense didn't take jury selection seriously. But that ended up net washing out because you got a random jury where the video evidence and the court of public opinion by independent media made sure that there was never going to be convictions. There was just a risk of a mistrial. But I think that risk diminished because Democrats overplayed their hand. Sending out the National Guard the weekend that they're going to come back before closing arguments and announcing it, making a big deal about it, then shutting down schools near the courthouse so people can't send their kids to school because a scary verdict is coming, allowing protesters to be within earshot and eyeshot of the jury while deliberating. I think the net effect was that bad juror and the other rogue jurors, because I think there were 3 to 4 that were initially
pushed them the other way.
They're like, do we want to? We're not going to get any convictions here. So do we want Kenosha to go through this for another couple of months, another year, maybe? Do we want to just continue this unabated? And I think it backfired on them because once they could not get convictions, it let all that political pressure led those jurors, I believe, to be like, screw this. We're done. We're going home. We're not going to have Kenosha go through this for another 6 months. And I think Democrats overplayed their hand, and ultimately made a mistake by what they did in Chauvin that worked in Chauvin. Because the entire jury pool was contaminated against Chauvin.
Totally different.
Because nobody had really fought for Chauvin in the court of public opinion leading up to the trial, and because of the political demographics of Minneapolis, it was always going to be. He was in a much worse position, even though the evidence at trial was much more favorable than the media narrative had led on. But that didn't matter, where by contrast, in Kyle's case, one, the video evidence was much stronger for Kyle than it was for Chauvin. But second, people had argued in the court of public opinion for Kyle, so there were a bunch more jurors ready to acquit that did not come in presuming him guilty. About a third of the jury pool was of that orientation. So because of the better arguments in the court of public opinion, Kyle was in a much better position than Chauvin. And in the demographics of Kenosha, whereas the Twin Cities was what, plus 60 Democratic, whatever.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Where Kenosha was plus 3 Trump, and it voted for Trump twice, voted more for Trump in 2020 than in 2016.
Than it did in 16. Barely inched it out in 16. And they're these idiots in the media, Robert, make it all about race this, race that. I bet you anything because of people that with sources we had feeding stuff to me. One of his best jurors is not white. And
the
this is
Mexican-American man. Yeah, I'm sure
yeah,
that's
and he looked, from what we heard, he looked like annoyed at that the night before. Was just like, look, this is cut and dry, and
right.
he probably look, if you get like a red against a red, one of them knows they're not going to buckle. It's not going to happen. Whoever has the majority on their side is much more likely to prevail because in the end, the red is decisive and just wants it over, like you said. They do not want it hanging over their heads. They just don't.
And it's part of a developing.
They view it as a failure.
Yeah, I mean it's probably a good transition into it's Mexican American men, working class Mexican American men, continued to trend against the Democratic Party, and I think it's because they're not identitarian and by nature. They don't sit there and say I'm Mexican American, so I must vote. Boom, 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 boom. They're more like other working class men in America. And in Texas, it's starting to get to be a bloodbath for Democrats. I mean, the whole basis by which they were going to seize Texas, by which they were going to have a permanent majority, was that Mexican American voters would never change their voting patterns and would continue. And even though if you dug into the data, you saw the more removed a Mexican American was from immigration. In other words, they weren't immigrants or their parents weren't immigrants. The more and more they were trending in a Trumpish direction because they're a very populist constituency. Because I mean, going way, way back. Now they have a lot of left populist inclinations. That's why Bernie did very well with Mexican American voters, especially in 2020. That's why he dominated the Nevada caucuses. But now there's some unusual things that happened in West Texas. Otherwise, his voting, I think, would have been bigger there. There was some election fortification that took place in that Democratic.
Yeah, we couple instances of that, pretty much against Bernie across the board. Even I remember start in Iowa, he had those satellites, and it was a smart play. But we found very clear. Oops, how did that happen? Discrepancies with the state delegates. So
and
it is what it is.
Turnout proclivities. There's just a long-standing West Texas Democratic Mexican American political machine that can, Bloomberg showed up unusually in some of those places. I mean, basically, I told me if you want to know where you can buy votes, look at where Bloomberg did unusually well. That's where you can buy votes. But they're otherwise a populist group because they're a cowboy culture. They are. I mean, that's why they love. Why so many love the hats, love the big hats, the big cowboy hats. I mean, and that's a gun culture. That's not an anti-gun culture. And so, there's a reason why they're very much like working class Southern European immigrants of the last century. A lot like Italians and a good bit, but not exactly like Irish, but probably more like Italians than any other immigrant predecessor group. And that group has been trending against the Democrats since, the 70s. And we're almost re-experiencing what happened. There was the peak of John Kennedy winning in 1960, where Catholic immigrants finally had their Catholic president and really rallied to him in massive numbers.
80 plus, yeah.
And then from 72 forward, they were called your Reagan Democrats in the 80s because they continued to vote Democrat down ballot, but an increasing shift to the right. And it's almost like we're re-experiencing it again. The left got crazy in the late 60s on cultural and social issues that drove away a lot of their working class base. It didn't translate to congressional elections really until the 90s because of the institutional corruption of the Democratic Party in the House. But ultimately that's where it went. I think you're seeing another wave of it now with Mexican American and to some degree African American men, particularly if they identify as independent or unaffiliated. They are not, a big college, post-college. I think in polling, we'll almost need to do different degrees of college. Like ask people, do you have a college degree from this kind of college versus do you have a college degree
right. No, there's some value there. There's some validity to that, Robert. There is. And I think we're the ones, a lot of people just simply ask, do you have a college degree or not? Which is not enough, in my opinion. It just isn't. But this poll, we're going to be, I'll probably wrap up processing it tonight, but I snapped this earlier. The sample is going to be bigger than normal, about 2,500, because something was going on here, man. I mean, women they're swinging hard, and men I wanted to go after a little bit more of because we were just talking about that area in South Texas, for instance. This was, I went out to the field and got a little bit more. This is what it looked like before I did. Okay. It filled out quite a bit over Sunday, which is what I put up Saturday on locals. So what people were saying, oh, wow, look at the West has to fill out. Look at Southwest Texas and look at some of these other areas in the Midwest. And I'm like, you know what? We don't have, and specifically it was men 40 and above here, Robert. Okay. So you know what? We don't have enough. I'm going back in. And this is what it looked like before that. And it was still really ugly for Democrats. So let me put this map up again and just, I'm going to throw out some raw data results, early raw data results, and you guys are going to realize how bad this poll is going to be. This is going to be the worst poll that we have ever put out for Joe Biden for the head-to-head matchups. And you know, Robert, I do not think, or I thought, I'm now rethinking it, that Republicans can win a popular vote that easy anymore in a presidential election. But damn, Robert, we haven't carried the female vote in a presidential election since 1988 when Poppy Bush won it over the caucus by 2 lousy points, 51-49. Ronald Reagan won it. Rasmussen's poll, a week ago, showing him just thumping Biden and Harris. They had him winning with women, and it caught my eye, and I'm like, that's weird to me, you know? Then we're out in the field, and the women are basically even. They're basically, which is nuts to me. And there are women who say they'll vote for Donald Trump, but are not voting, or at least are undecided still on the generic ballot. So Trump is actually running ahead of the generic Republicans against both Biden and Harris. And I don't know what's going on here. I think the independent margin is bigger for Trump. I think that's what's happening. I'm going to have to go and look at it. But look at the issues, man. This is ranked. We asked them to rank it. And when we asked them just to pick one, the economy and jobs looks like it's slightly going to edge out cost of living. But I mean like 1 point. And then cost of living is after that. Nothing comes close to them, ladies and gentlemen. COVID is going to be number 4. Healthcare is number 3, but COVID is really a lot to do with people who don't like the mandates. So once upon a time, this issue really benefited Democrats. That is not the case anymore. All because of like the people Robert and I were just talking about. You're, a Mexican American in South Texas or Southwest Texas. You choose COVID. It's because you hate the mandate. It's not because you want to wear a mask. And this is all going nuts. I love asking and putting it in ranked distribution scoring because it gives you the intensity. Nothing is close. And this is going to be a bad
I was going to say
for Democrats.
Oh, yes. I was going to 2 things. One is that's the highest the economy has ranked. Gallup has a pullout admitting this today, too. The highest it is ranked as an issue since the last time a Democrat was in the White House.
What a surprise!
Yeah. And then the second aspect is I do think I kind of suggested this at the time for a range of reasons, but I think losing 2020 may have been the best thing for Trump because now he is in place in and for populist conservatives. Now 2024 is looking like not only will Trump win easy, but he'll actually have a real mandate and on policy because the margin looks like it'll be substantial if it keeps going. And most importantly, he'll have a lot more allies in the House and a lot more allies in the Senate and a lot more allies at the state level than he would have if he would have snuck in 2020. And so I think he's in much. I mean, all would have happened had he won 2020 and the same vote broke down in the House and the Senate is that he would have gone through round 3 of impeachment, round 4 of impeachment, round 5 of impeachment, whatever else. He wouldn't have been able to get much done. McConnell would have still been a block in the Senate. Wouldn't have had much going in the House. Now he's going to have a bunch of populist allies. Imagine if you have J.D. Vance and Blake Masters and Eric Greitens and Herschel Walker and those kind of people in the United. That'll be some of the most populist Republican senators since the 1920s. Back when you had the old populists from like North Dakota, Gerald Nye, and
the
Idaho,
old school Midwest,
old school populists that were like, let's have another committee on the war profiteers. I mean, people forget the Senate used to have cojones.
Joe Kent.
They used to go after the Bush Walker type families. Let's look at who made money off the last war. That's what it was called, the War Profiteer Committee. Can you imagine Richard Burr doing a war profiteer committee?
Marco Rubio. Who will
Exactly.
still
He,
be
he's
there,
busy checking his
obviously.
stocks. Oh yeah, I'm gonna make a little more money. Oh yeah, that's what he's busy doing. So I think what all this is ultimately good news for Trump. Now, it would help if Trump wakes up from some of his slumber.
Yeah.
I mean, why hasn't he talked yet about vaccine mandates? I get he got unduly attached to the wonders of vaccine because he thought magically he would get credit for something. He was an idiot to think that, frankly. I mean, I'll do Operation Warp Speed and everybody will love me for
Everyone
vaccine.
will love me
They were
for it.
never going to
Yeah.
credit you. They were just going to condemn you. I mean, that was a sucker's play, and he took it. But he needs to come out against these mandates. I mean, what is he waiting on? He should make it more clear. He should make it part of a rallying cry. He's still a little slow. He's still too bitter about 2020.
Yep.
I get it being a part of his agenda. It can't be 75% of his agenda. I'm glad he backed up what he said about Kyle Rittenhouse at the time. Credit to Trump for being willing to say so at the time.
Step out in front of that. Yeah.
Everybody was telling him to
yeah.
keep his mouth shut. I mean, there's a lot of other people. Dana Loesch is out. You talking now? She wasn't backing up Kyle when she was defending Black Rifle Coffee for throwing
no
Kyle
kidding.
under the bus. Now Dana Loesch has suddenly discovered the importance of Kyle Rittenhouse. Some of these people were late to the party, but now trying to cash in on their own accord. But I do. But otherwise, it looks great for Trump. If Trump really tunes up. Now, the other thing is people that think Trump's going to lose in 2024 in the nomination. That's I don't think that's even possible at this. Something would have to radically change. What's the latest poll out of Iowa? He's winning by like 30 points over DeSantis.
Yeah.
I
And
think
people have to remember how primaries go,
Florida
Robert.
DeSantis.
He is. He's beating DeSantis badly in Florida. It's 53-22 or something. It's bad. So I mean, that's. I understand why some people have those reservations, but the fact is DeSantis won't run if Trump runs, folks. He's going to be his VP, and that is
He's
it.
not that. He's not politically
stupid.
suicidal. Now,
That's it.
a dimwit governor of South Dakota might try it.
Looks like Pence is going to. This is going to be great.
He's going to get crushed. He is going to get utterly crushed. It is very foolish for him to even think about it. That is going to be humiliating. Now, he could steal some votes out of Iowa because his base is the religious conservative base, and that's very strong in Iowa. Though last I saw, he had lost half of that base, and he was getting nowhere with everybody else. He was at,
and that's the thing. His evangelical against Biden is like 80%. So I mean, it really is. He would top easily because he was like in the 70s, 76. He'd easily top that. I'm talking about Trump against Biden and Trump against Clinton. But this time it would be it's overwhelming across the board. He's even starting to.
This is looking like 1976, right? Where
Robert.
You had a crazy wokester version of the Democratic Party back then. All the young hippie kids. The 3 A's: abortion, amnesty. What was the third A? Acid. That was the third A. About the disaster of the young lefty Democrats reflected and represented in the McGovern campaign. Nixon helped create McGovern as a nominee, but that's another story. But but that whole sort of dynamic, and they dodged the bullet because they were able to create momentary scandal around Watergate that got someone like Carter in, and Biden is like a poor man's Jimmy Carter. If we're honest, I mean, Carter at least was conscientious. And Carter was a governor that was much more Biden ever was.
He had qualities, Robert. He had qualities. People were just like, I like him, but damn, he's incompetent. Now Biden, people are realizing Biden wasn't really ever the nice guy. And we heard this all weekend. And also, cost of living, you chose that. We asked you what about it specifically, like we did in some of the other state surveys we did. Food and groceries took almost half. And then housing, shelter, and gas and fuel are really, kind of neck and neck.
It's everyday inflation.
Scared, my friend.
It's inflation where and it's your pocketbook on a daily basis. And you see the Fed's excuse for this? The Fed's excuse was they actually put out a tweet, the St. Louis Fed.
I saw it. I retweeted you.
Yeah, that said, what we need is you should just go get some soy instead of real protein for Thanksgiving. Can you
know what?
imagine
I got to get
putting
this
that nonsense, that great reset nonsense out? I should eat
I gotta
soy.
get this.
Now, when I was a kid, we did once have turkey broth for Thanksgiving because my mom, we were broke. And but
Yeah,
my
that's
mom
different
insisted
though.
she was not going to let the family not have turkey on Thanksgiving. So we had turkey broth. But that's the only I'm not eating any soy for Thanksgiving.
This is it. And you wrote an actual Fed post, as you know, from the Federal Reserve blog. A Thanksgiving dinner serving of poultry costs $1.42. A soybean-based dinner serving with the same amount of calories costs 66 cents and provides almost twice as much protein. What it doesn't provide is tryptophan, you idiots. That's what Thanksgiving's all about. Men like to drink and eat
Soy,
turkey
they're
and then
literally
get
telling
sleepy.
people to go eat soy for Thanksgiving. Soy. These people
This
are
is
so out of touch. Now, of course, Jerome
emasculation.
Powell is going to be back in charge. He played ball. So Biden announced today that Jerome Powell will get a second kick at the can on the Fed. People should ask themselves, why is it even when the president changes, the Fed Reserve president doesn't? The Fed board chairman somehow magically does not. Tells you who's really running the show. Even though clearly this inflation is exactly what the critics of modern monetary theory said would happen. They said you just can't keep printing them, running up the money supply to record levels and actually getting that money out into the real economy. I think what misled them is when they boosted the stock market, a lot of that in the 08, 09, 2010, that money stayed within the financial system. It didn't get out to the ordinary consumer. This time, and that's why they're like, Peter Schiff and others was predicting inflation because of what was happening with money supply, but the money supply wasn't getting out to the ordinary person, so it didn't matter. This time it did. This time the money went out to the ordinary person, and we had in other lockdowns. And what we were saying from the get-go is this is a economic experiment that they're doing. There's no way this turns out
no
as
evidence
magical.
of this.
They think it was. And you combine supply chain shortages with massive monetary supply increases, and then you throw in, let's randomly force millions of Americans to quit. It's amazing the media's ability to cover. We had a record level of people quit their jobs in August, and then they exceeded that record in September. I'm sure they exceeded it again in October. And the media just won't talk about, what could possibly be setting these records? The vaccine mandate, maybe? Maybe there was something that happened in August and September that corresponds to that sudden spike in people out of work. And
that's another thing. Severe adverse effects. The reported number is going to be, I don't want to spit out a number that is ridiculous. Just me. I remember last time it was about 3%, 3.5%, right? Yeah. That's going to be up like potentially over 5%. Which is already a serious problem.
Artificially deflated numbers already. If we went back and used like shadow stats data from the 1980s when they were if we were keeping stats the same way we kept it then, we would be looking at 1970s levels of inflation. And we may be returning to stagflation. Remember how miserable that was for people in the 70s? It was the worst combination. The economy sucked and inflation was going up. And usually that was never supposed to happen. If inflation happened, at least the economy was buzzing. Not you get inflation and the economy sucks in terms of jobs.
We have asked. We asked again, Robert, and this time I thought maybe we'll do it a little bit differently. Even though the same sentence appeared in the first survey, requiring employers to fire employees for not taking the vaccine and imposing severe fines on companies for non-compliance. I thought, well, you know what? Just to, make sure it clearly lays out what it does. It will be, not close. It is a significant majority that opposes the vaccine mandate on employers with 100 employees or more. Requiring children 5 years and older to take the vaccine, which we know is coming. Let's get real. We're very unpopular. None of this is popular. The closest one is requiring college students to attend higher learning institutions. But even that is not like, oh, yeah, I totally support this. Everything strongly is opposed. So all of the strong sentiment is against it. And I just between this and the inflation, I think this could be historically bad. And I've been saying that as far as the House goes, the ceiling is lower than like a 2010, or because they simply don't have that many targets. But is that really true? If these numbers swing that much, is that really true? I mean, I don't know, Robert. There are always districts that nobody sees coming.
And not only that, you're looking at a lot more populist Republicans being probably a record level of populist
there
Republicans
gotta
in the
be.
House and the Senate, at least in the modern era. I mean, the 1920s, people forget the Republican Party had a
They were
big
populist.
populist wing.
They were popular, yeah.
You know, anti-war, protective trade policies, anti-Wall Street, anti-big banks. That, you know, there was a big wing of the Republican Party from 19 teens to
Anti-monopoly. I mean,
1950s or so. The corporate Yankee is, in fact, it was the Republican Party that was always fighting its Yankee establishment, as Kevin Phillips put it. Now it's the Democratic Party that's saddled with a Yankee establishment. And as he pointed out back in 1966, that he goes, that usually doesn't turn out well. That when the Yankee elites start running your party starts to sink electorally. And that's, you know, all Obama did was, and Clinton did, was buy them time, because they were uniquely popular individuals who managed to navigate through policy-wise to limit their controversial component. People forget first term Obama was very different than second term Obama, aside from Obamacare, which was a statist corporatist solution that was unpopular. The craziness of wokeism didn't happen until his reelection. After his reelection is when that side of Obamaism showed up, and that was always extremely unpopular. And now they have a derelict in the White House, all the stuff we've been saying all the way through, that the problem is for replacing Biden is that Harris is even more unpopular. And was a bad choice for the Democratic Party. But it was also because who else do they have? Booty gay, you know, busy taking time off to for his son, you know, in the middle of a
maternal
supply crisis.
Maternal leave.
And his only answer was to go into a long lecture about how New York City bridges were built to screw over black people, which is actually true, by the way. People don't know it. The long-standing parks director who managed to run the whole city of New York despite being in an unelected position. There's a whole history of that guy, which is fascinating. And yeah, he would design roads to screw over minority groups, because, you know, leave it to New York to figure out a way to do that. But it's like, why are you going off on a random rant on 1930s New York park policy? Because he doesn't want to talk about the supply crisis. That it's getting worse. You lay off port workers because of vaccine mandates. They're losing truck drivers because of vaccine mandates. They're losing warehouse storage workers because of vaccine mandates. They're losing railroad workers. And that's exactly where the supply storage crisis is taking place. Supply chain crisis. I mean, this is just ridiculous. And they thought all these policies were going to be popular. Credit finally. What were we saying in March? We were saying in March,
there was
Republican
something right.
Party should get on all these policies will be bad economically. Said that in March. That, you know, these people going out and predicting that the economy would be booming and Biden would be very popular.
Could name some names
of the Rising that's now got his own show. God bless him, but turned out a little bit wrong again. Then we were saying in March, Republicans should get on board opposing vaccine mandates in the state legislatures and at the federal level. And they were just late to the party, but finally they realized, hold on a second, it's really popular to oppose vaccine mandates. And all of a sudden now they're finally on board. They should have been on board 3 months ago, but at least, you know, better late than never. And that these other issues and that the vaccine mandates would not salvage Biden. I mean, they really believed it. They believed the vaccine mandates would magically end COVID, and everybody would love Biden for doing what was necessary. And what turned out? More people, was it the rule the media set that every COVID death's the president's fault? Isn't that the rule they set during the Trump era?
Yeah, no kidding. What about this year?
From COVID. I mean, according, you know, these are in quotes from COVID, but using the same metrics they used on Trump, more people died from COVID in 2021. And so Biden didn't heal COVID. He made it worse and created collateral problems along the way in the economy, civil liberties, civil society, etc. And this doesn't even deal with his foreign policy debacle in Afghanistan and elsewhere. And right now, apparently, people are rattling for a distracting war in the Ukraine. We're going to go to war in Ukraine with Russia? That's ridiculous.
This is what they do. And the gaggle guys, they said they nailed that, man. They said, especially George, he was really like, this is going to happen, especially as the more and more they fail. This is what, this, and it's a pattern. I mean, this is what, it's not just Democratic presidents. This is what presidents do when they begin to fail domestically. They look for these other ventures out abroad. But he nailed it. I think I was on with George 2 months ago, and he was like, wait for this shift if this doesn't get better. And we talked about it wasn't going to get better. I stole the line from a woman in the poll the other day, but she said, if I can afford it, I can't find it. If I can find it, I can't afford it. That's what she said. And I was like, oh, wow. Some things just, will stick with you. And she made sure that she wanted to specifically write that in there so that would come to us, and it stuck with me. Actually, Saturday, Robert, I was blown away by America's supposed to be positive, and that's like part of Donald Trump's magic. And Ronald Reagan was the same way. They just were great cheerleaders and optimistic, and they made you feel optimistic, and they made everybody, if you didn't like them, whatever, but you were still optimistic about America's future, and things were going to get better. This is the problem. On Saturday, it was freaking depressing when it started to, dip in, because I do. I'm a little bit superstitious. I don't like to interfere, too much, but I poke in and see what people are saying. And it was just flat depressing. And I haven't heard this. First of all, I don't think I've heard this level of negativity ever. I don't think I really cannot go back to a time when I could find that. And I also can't go back to a time when a raw sample is 30% conservative and Donald Trump is leading in the raw. I mean, so I just don't. It's bad. It's bad. And it's because of this
people out
fear.
there are really upset and very depressed about the status of. Plus, I mean, basically
going into the holidays, Robert. Going into
the whole
the
pitch
holidays.
was return to normalcy. Everything's going to be great.
That's
let Biden
it,
back
man.
in, and they
That's
discovered
it.
just the opposite. And that's what there is a history of this with populists, not just Andrew Jackson,
Grover
in
Cleveland,
1824, but when
yep.
they use every possible means to take out a populist after a first term or in a first try. What they throw everything at it, and then they can't deliver at all once their person is in, and it leads to the populist being much stronger the second time around. Whether it's the comeback of the populist or however it may be, there's a long history of this in mayor's races, sheriff's races, congressional races, governor's races, and in the Andrew Jackson's context, presidential races. So I think it puts the Trump and populism in very good stead. Now, Trump's not going to create the machine for it, but what's happening is it's being independently created. Now, people had asked, we will be creating something that, a PAC or something else and after the New Year's, people have wanted who should they support, who should they avoid. And we will be coming up with that list to recommend certain people versus others. We were one of the first to promote Joe Kent. He's doing fantastic.
Absolutely.
For one of the, early on Blake Masters, early on JD Vance, early on some others that are also doing very well, early on Herschel Walker, of course. But Ken is an example of what can be done if we identify and highlight and spotlight a populist challenger and push that individual and help organize effectively, create a political machine outside of the Trump arena, because Trump won't create it himself.
He's
and maybe
not
that's
doing
net positive, because then it's not limited by Trump, not restricted by Trump. It's totally independent of Trump.
Or politically tied to. So, if the media has this meltdown mode again, maybe a 2-year incumbent midterm wouldn't look that bad because people, right? I mean, a lot of people tied themselves to this bandwagon here, whether they call themselves moderates or not. This is the voters aren't hearing it. They're not hearing it. If you're moderate, this stuff wouldn't happen.
Another thing to add for a future poll is trying to get J.D. Vance, Thomas Massey, Blake Masters, some others on this. But the fact that the reason why all these congressmen are saying what they're saying is because of in my view, misinterpretation. But that ship has sailed based on the Covington kids, which is right now, members of Congress have a license to lie and libel anyone, anywhere, any place, anytime, as soon as they're elected to Congress. My view is it would be a very good winning issue to propose a Covington kids legislation that says a member of Congress's immunity for libel is limited to the speech and immunities clause. In other words, if it's outside the speech and immunities clause, which basically only applies to speeches made inside the halls of Congress, if it's outside of that, then they should have no immunity. And to me, that's going to be what, 80-20, 75-25
I was
winner?
you know what? We should add that to a questionnaire. I mean, that's got to be overwhelming.
That's a no-brainer. It's like, and every candidate should be running on that to their opponent. Say, if I get elected to Congress, I'm for taking away my immunity from suit based on if I lie and libel about someone, and keep demanding their opponent answer the question: are you for taking away that immunity, or are you for special immunity for politicians that they should be above the law, like Elizabeth Warren is, like our Interior Secretary Deb Haaland is, like effectively Joe Biden while he's president is. Like all these, like Cori Bush, who's lying about Kyle Rittenhouse is.
That's a good question, though, Robert, because Joe Biden defamed Kyle Rittenhouse when he was a candidate. So
he's not immune for that point. Now the problem is
what do you think about that?
Opinion-based statements, so he's outside of they'll say it's protected opinion, so you won't be able to sue him for it. But right now, as president, he's immune for anything he says for libel, and so is every other executive branch employee. And really, that just shouldn't be the case. Unless it's part of your job. If it's part of your job and inside the halls of Congress, that's one thing. Quite another when it's outside the halls of Congress. When it's outside the halls of Congress, you should not have immunity. Your immunity should be limited to what the Constitution said it was. And this is a winning issue, in my view, an easy winning issue, a no-brainer winning issue for every candidate. And for people who don't know how consequential these can be, Newt Gingrich's main issue in 1994 was the House checking scandal. So because it was symbolic of deeper institutional
elitism,
rot.
Rot.
This is another example of deeper institutional rot. These Democratic politicians say they should have complete immunity to lie and libel you as soon as they get elected to Congress. They shouldn't be held above the law. They should be held the same standard as everyone else. And every candidate should run on it. And they have two examples now, not just the Covington kids, but also who are not allowed to sue Elizabeth Warren, not allowed to sue Deborah Haaland. But now Kyle Rittenhouse, who is being lied about by all these politicians because they know they're immune from libel suits, and that should change.
It's not right. It's not right. I mean, say people. Yeah, I think that would cross party lines. I think you're onto something there.
Only your hardcore Democratic upper class politicians should always have power. People would be opposed.
Yeah, right. The stiff upper lips, the coffee and crumpets or tea. Sorry, coffee's barbaric. But basically that's an easy one to add, and that's an easy campaign one to grab onto. The Republicans have a slew of these this year that they could run, because even if they blew California, even in the California recall, what voters really wanted to punish Gavin Newsom over was their perception that he was a hypocrite and an elitist. And they just couldn't bring themselves to support the Republican. But that's why I and others had it so close at one point, because there were a large percentage of Democrats.
If Bobby Kennedy had run, a different Democrat had run, Newsom would have lost the recall. And I think Democrats misread the recall. They saw that as, hey, look, he survived by a comparable vote to when he got elected. But what they didn't look at
misread the results? Yeah.
You dig inside those numbers, there was massive movement amongst working class voters against Newsom, particularly working class Mexican American voters and other key groups. And thus they go over to New Jersey and they go over to Virginia. I mean, they got crushed. I mean, it was a bigger Republican wave in New Jersey than it was in Virginia compared to where the benchmark was, because you got about plus 15, plus 16, whatever it was in 2020. In New Jersey, only about plus 10 in Virginia, and yet it got very close within a point or two in New Jersey. And then particularly for South Jersey to reject their longstanding local Democrats.
That's Gloucestershire.
That's the last wave of it. Reminds me of like in 1994 when evangelicals in the South left the Democratic Party down ballot for the first time. Up ballot, they'd been voting Republican, but down ballot, they'd been voting Democratic. And they just left in mass. I remember telling people They're done. They're never coming back. Those Southern evangelicals are gone from the Democratic Party forever, especially the church-going ones. The
And that
cultural
happened.
ones, I mean, in Tennessee, it was great. There was one poll question that told me whether you were a cultural evangelical or a church-going evangelical. Now, it may not work as much these days, but back then it was, do you like country music? Because the church-going evangelicals, that's still, they're singing about alcohol and dancing and wrongful behavior and shooting people and so on and so forth. Your cultural evangelical, and I mean someone who identifies as an evangelical Christian but doesn't go to church a whole lot, it was a big country music fan. And whichever way the country music fan voter was going was whoever they were trending, that's where the populist vote was. It was one of the easiest ways to tell a populist vote. Probably these days wouldn't be near as much because the younger generation of church-going evangelicals like country music, don't have a problem with it, go to movies. I was growing up, that was a no-go. You didn't go to movies. You didn't have dances. That was sinful behavior.
Inappropriate.
Inappropriate. Absolutely inappropriate. That's the devil moving through you, boy.
That's the devil moving through you.
Same with alcohol. It was Lucifer's liquor, Satan's suds, Beelzebub's brew, the devil's drink. That's what alcohol was. And I was growing up. But now a lot of that has shifted. That's why Roy Moore didn't realize that group had gone past him. There was enough to win a primary, not enough to win a general, because that generation was being replaced by people who were not of the same inclination. And so I think that, but we'll see but hopefully they've woken up to that the populist wing of the Republican Party is the future of the Republican Party. And if more populists come out, if more people embrace populism, then 2022 right now is going to be a populist wave, and 2024 a bigger one. And I don't think Biden solved that problem by he was trying to quiet the war between Booty
Yes.
and Harris by saying, hey, I'm running in 2024. The problem is I don't think he realistically can run in 2024, given his health issues, but also given that he's not helping at all. His numbers are terrible. So he would be better off if they had a real replacement. The problem is they don't.
That was going to be my question. So where do they go, Robert? Because we did Harris against Trump. She does worse. And it's not, and by the way, it's across the board. Whites, blacks, Hispanics, Asians, it's across the board. Trump takes 5% more of the black vote against Harris than he does against Biden, and he's already running pretty high against Biden.
Exactly.
Where do they go? Pete Buttigieg?
We pointed out she was hated for a reason, and that she was a bad candidate. And so she was a bad choice for the Democratic Party, but it showed how how corrupted they've become. That all they have are neoliberal elites, are the core of the party. They run the party. They dominate the party, and they won't embrace the left populism of Bernie Sanders that could get them some mojo with certain groups, younger voters, Mexican American voters, etc., because they're just institutionally corrupt. And Biden is the personification of it. A dementia candidate with a long history of corruption. Who, I don't know if you see that little girl karate chop him away when he kept trying to.
Oh my God,
Joe! And then you have
the other one.
Story.
Come find me.
Amazing. The media kept. Imagine if there had been an Ivanka Trump going to drug rehab diary that talked about daddy liking taking showers with her at an inappropriate age. Right? Can you imagine? Media would have talked about it for weeks, months.
They already did talk about it. Don't you think it's weird how he puts his hand on Ivanka's back?
It's all
stupid stuff.
It was confession through projection. Everything there said creepy physical interactions. Joe Biden. Family members that are corrupted selling access. Joe Biden. People colluding with foreign governments to undermine U.S. elections. Joe Biden. That's who they were describing. But it's even worse. According to this is why the feds are busy trying to cover it up and bury that diary by attacking Project Veritas, trying to figure out who had access to it,
who saw it.
Yes, but once it came out that she was going to a drug rehab and journaling, I was like, okay, other drug rehab people got that journal. That's what that is. And some of them were probably shocked to see what she was putting in there. This is Sandusky style behavior. Sandusky liked to shower with people inappropriately at inappropriate ages.
That is not flattering, man. That is not flattering at all.
You have a dementia candidate and a perv, a complete perv, not Bill Clinton perv.
You see with the boy?
Bill Clinton perv.
Did you see with the boy? after we're done here, come find me later. I'll give you a private tour of the White House. What the hell are you talking about? If he talked to my son like that, I don't care what office he holds. You ain't going anywhere near my son alone, you old creep. I mean, anyone who says something like that, that's not normal behavior. I don't care. If you're a parent, you think that's normal? No. You're gonna let your child go disappear with Joe Biden or any older man? Are you crazy? Then you need to get a visit from DYFS or Children and Services or whatever the hell it's called in your state, because that is not protecting your child. That's creepy, man. That is very creepy.
Who's dumb
as
enough
opposed
at this point
to
to take
DeSantis.
little kids around Joe Biden? And who in the White House is letting him through? At this point, you got to know, keep the little kids out. Keep the little kids out.
Ron Klain's too busy counting his money, man.
Joe.
Ron Klain, that's his job, but he's too busy counting his money from Pfizer and Moderna.
And busy retweeting things that end up in court cases.
I know. This guy. You know what? What does it really? Because speaking of, a lot of questions that really are directed to you. What does it take in defamation cases? Like, you have people like him and others. Now the trial is over, and yet they're still continuing with the lies. In defamation cases, doesn't the judge, or really the court, don't they take into consideration how long in between, like if you correct it, after it's known?
All that matters. The problem is, from Zimmerman, from what was that other high-profile Florida case? The woman who was accused
Casey Anthony.
If you've been criminally accused, you basically don't have defamation suits available to you because it becomes an intervening, superseding cause.
Tragic.
That all your reputational harm was caused by these events. And so that's where, if you dig in and try to find a acquitted criminal defendant who was able to successfully sue on defamation grounds, you're not going to find many. My recollection is Zimmerman tried to sue and lost all of them, as I recall.
Yeah, he did.
It's just the courts say that that's an intervening event. The problem is prosecutors and politicians should not be as immune as they are, because that's what gives the
answer.
For the
You're
press
right.
And everybody else to lie, because they can always point to what the prosecutors and politicians said. And so we got to cure it at that level. And, Andrew Bronca calls it Kyle's Law, but that's another idea that Republicans should run on and campaign on. And, they should continue to campaign on robust opposition to these vaccine mandates. They should continue to campaign on lifting libel limits on politicians once elected to office. These kind of issues are winners, and they're easy populist winners.
Penalties for prosecutorial misconduct, real penalties. You want to know what bothers the black community? Overzealous, corrupt prosecutors who are looking to run for governor one day. That's what bothers them. I mean, Robert, there's nothing that gets done here. You have Andrew Weissman, who basically gets scolded by the Supreme Court. Unanimous decision, 9-0, overturning Arthur Anderson. They called him a liar. You lied to the jury about jury instructions. You're basically a piece of garbage. He gets scolded by the Supreme Court and then ends up as really the point man on the Mueller investigation. I mean, this is crazy. Nothing ever happens to these
after
people.
that. I mean, just like Little Binger is likely to get promoted at some level, despite the debacle of what happened. Some people in the chat were asking about Kyle saying he likes Black Lives Matter. That's David Hancock.
Explain, people.
David Hancock is the one telling him to say all these things. David Hancock is a corrupt idiot, a grifter who's monetizing the kid for his own purposes. But he has complete control of the family's security and money and media. Like, people are asking
a cell phone bill, folks.
If you hear anybody say they have direct access to Kyle, they may not realize it, but they don't. Everything is going. Even his phones are controlled by David Hancock. Emails controlled by David Hancock. So
just
it's
to be
all
explicit,
controlled by him. So if you see anything over the next couple of weeks, couple of months, where you think, why is Kyle appearing there? Why is he saying that? It's all David Hancock. It's not the kid. It's David Hancock saying, you need to say this, you need to say this, you need to say this, you need to say this.
And there were opposing voices. You should not
Black
go
Lives
out.
Matter is not a.
They were going to do it during the trial. I mean, they were going to. I mean, this was. Thank God he did better on the stand in the actual trial than in the mock jury, because I mean, to listen to Mark Richards talk about, well, we had 2 mock juries, and if you don't put the client on the stand in Wisconsin, you're going to lose. But it was much more favorable in the mock jury. Wow. The breaks this kid got, and God bless him for it. But believe me, folks, it was not Mark Richards. And that was not, I mean, it was very risky considering how he really
Oh,
did perform in
one
mock
after the
jury.
other. Don't
It
use
was
how
not
this case
great.
was defended as an example in the future. Use the how people argued in the court of public opinion because that mattered. Use the importance of video evidence because that mattered.
Yeah, big time.
Don't look to how the defense ran the actual case because that was mostly poorly done. A lot of
It was luck,
utterly
Robert. A lot of it.
unnecessary gambles.
Yeah, what did Joe Neerman say from Good Logic? He said this was the worst defense since what's his name started playing basketball. I forgot what the hell he say. But basically it was the point he drove it home was that this wasn't competency. I mean, it was the facts of the case were very strong on his side. The video evidence was it. That was such a big deal. And then basically all the stars aligned, and he did do well on the stand. And the prosecutor just wasn't a very good cross examiner. Most prosecutors really aren't, right?
Well,
I mean, isn't that really true?
Guy, right? And he's a relatively young prosecutor because the top ones wouldn't touch the case because they thought it was
They
a
wouldn't
dead
go near it.
loser, which obviously it was. And so he was swarmy. He was good at lying and being deceitful, but he doesn't have anywhere near the skill and experience level of a lot of prosecutors. So there are other prosecutors it would have been very hard for Kyle to be able to maintain emotional equilibrium, to dodge any traps that get set for him.
Yeah.
But Kyle's an exceptional person, and the facts were exceptional facts, and the people came to his defense at an exceptional level, and that's what got him acquitted.
You got to give it to the kid.
not his defense counsel.
You got to give it to the kid.
Yeah.
That is not an easy thing to go through, especially after, again, like I said, you just took life. He does have PTSD, and he's going to have to, work on that hard. And yet
And
he
he's
still
not one of
got
these sort of
through.
proud, macho, kind of people that he was projected as being. That's not who he is.
Yeah.
There are a lot of us
Yeah.
that had less problems with who he shot than he did.
Yeah, no
even though
kidding.
his life was on the line.
You see the father on
I'm not gonna
CNN?
mourn. Pito Pascal apparently is mourning Rosenbaum.
Oh,
And Hollywood, leave it to Hollywood.
Mark
to really
Ruffalo.
tear up over the death of a pedophile. Only Hollywood would start crying so profusely over, a pedo got killed? Because that
Yeah.
apparently is the greatest tragedy in Hollywood.
Incredible, Robert. And the father, I get he's a grieving father of what's his name. Here, I got it right here. I got his arrest record right here. As a matter of fact, let me pull it up. Let me pull this up. And I'm not going to play the clip because CNN's probably going to flag it, even if I did. But Jonathan Huber, Robert will be right back. So let me do this and put this on here. All right. So Huber's father was on CNN, and look, if my kid was not a great kid, God forbid, I hope my child does not, and any parent hopes they do a much better job, providing society with a productive, valuable, respectful member of society who contributes instead of takes or causes problems and harm to others in society. And I understand, any father or parent is still going to be upset, but it doesn't mean, that it doesn't give you a license to malign the judge as he cast all sorts of aspersions at the judge. He's crooked. He was biased. I get it. Whatever. He's part of the racist, white supremacist, the systemic racist system, whatever, all these cute little buzzwords. The fact is, Huber didn't have a great record. He wasn't hanging around a great group of guys. I mean, you are who you roll with, folks. All right. And this guy has got, and again, I feel for him as a father, but you got some damn nerve going on television and casting all sorts of allegations and smears other people's way. Maybe if I was his dad, I would look in the mirror and wonder what my culpability is in this sad event. What did I maybe do wrong to have somebody like this running around the streets, attacking underage kids, burning down stuff, whatever, participating in a violent mob who was out there to do harm to people and property that night and would have done more had they not run into Kyle Rittenhouse. And by the way, to the idiots out there, vigilanteism is by definition outside the law. In case you missed the trial, Kyle Rittenhouse acted within the boundaries of the law. He's not a vigilante. He is, like every other American, a citizen who has a right to defend himself. Even use deadly force if that's what it requires. Anyway, I mean, there's some doozies on here, folks. 2018 domestic abuse. Battery misdemeanor, dismissed on the prosecutor's motion, but repeater. Domestic abuse repeater. Disorderly conduct misdemeanor B, guilty. He took a guilty plea here. Domestic abuse. Again, repeater. Also had a forfeiture case for possessing drug paraphernalia. Who gives a damn? I care more about the the pattern of behavior. 2012. Recklessly endangering safety felony charge, which was dismissed second degree, but read in. Use of a dangerous weapon, domestic abuse. Raz Robert, who is here, can tell you, a lot of these charges get dismissed, sadly. But it is what strangulation and suffocation. Felony, guilty, due to a guilty plea. Domestic abuse. False imprisonment, felony, guilty, due to a guilty plea. Domestic abuse and use of a dangerous weapon. I mean, goes on and on. Battery misdemeanor, a charge dismissed, but read in. Domestic abuse, use of a deadly weapon. You see a pattern here? Disorderly conduct, misdemeanor B, charge dismissed, but read in as domestic abuse, use of a deadly weapon. Guys, this is, I could show you these photos. This is not great. This is his incarceration history from the Wisconsin Department of Corrections. Again, I feel for the dad, as any parent would. But for the love of God, even in your moment of grief and pain, you go and smear others who did absolutely nothing wrong? The judge could have been far more pro-defense, but he wanted the jury to deliberate. The judge could have thrown out some of those charges from the beginning, but he wanted the trial to play out. I actually think he was too lenient with the prosecutor. God help you if I'm a judge and I find out you putting witnesses on the stand intentionally, we're going to perjure themselves. Maybe it's a good thing I didn't become a judge, let me tell you. Anyway, so I get the man's pain, but man, yeah, Pendar, right. You really want to keep talking so everyone can keep bringing this up? By the way, what the hell are you doing hanging out with a pedophile? You know what? Give me 2 seconds. The media actually 100% sanitized the hell out of these kids and their records. Even the pictures they were showing of these people made them look like an angel. A lot different than the mugshot you see if you look up the criminal history. And again, people get in trouble. People make mistakes. I'm looking at the pattern of behavior. Okay? And I'm looking at the company that he chose to keep. Because it gets a lot worse when you look at Mr. Rosenbaum. All right? And in fact, here we go. Let's look at Joseph Rosenbaum until Robert comes back. Let's do that. Mr. Joseph Rosenbaum, right here. Lived in Kenosha, had an open case for misdemeanor bail jumping that was filed on July 30th, 2020. At the freaking time, ladies and gentlemen. The condition of bond read, not to possess or consume alcohol, not to possess or consume controlled substances without a prescription. No contact, including the residence, electronic or third party with, and I will not read that, that person place. It's not their damn fault. Rosenbaum also had an open misdemeanor case for battery, domestic abuse, and disorderly conduct. Court documents obtained by Wisconsin Right Now from the Pima County, Arizona Clerk of Courts confirmed Rosenbaum was charged by grand jury with 11 counts of child molestation and inappropriate sexual activity with children, including anal rape. And you know what? Hold on. Let me just do this for the delicate sensibilities out there. Warning. Some viewers may find the following content, we're going to cross out video there. Whoops. Viewer discretion is advised. Well, this is video, so it is what it is. Actually, that works out perfectly. Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Kids, if you're watching Daddy's show right now, turn it off. I don't want you to watch this part. I love you and thank you for your support, but don't watch Daddy right now because I'm going to read words I don't want you to hear. 3, 2, 1. They had enough time to go. Court documents obtained by Wisconsin 11 counts of child molestation and inappropriate sexual activity with children, including anal rape, masturbation, oral sex, and showing minors pornography. That's fantastic. The victims were 5 boys, ranging in age from 9 to 11 years old. He was convicted of 2 amended counts as part of a plea deal. You could see those documents here. We don't really need to. News articles say Joseph Jojo, right, Mark Ruffalo? By the way, we got Mark Ruffalo trending the other day. If you go and look at the top tweet, ta-da, it was me, saying he didn't watch an hour, a single hour of this trial. So I don't know what the hell he's even opining on it for. But regardless, he's obviously, what are you doing? Running for the president of the pedo club, Mark Ruffalo? The hell is wrong with you? You're sick, man. You're sick. And Marvel should get someone else to play the Hulk. Because the Hulk I know would Hulk smash the hell out of somebody who's a pedo runner. Screenshots and city databases show that he was on that registry for sexual contact with a minor case out of Arizona. He is found on the Wisconsin Sex Offender Registry right now, but may have been removed because he's deceased. We asked the Wisconsin Department of Corrections if they had a Joseph Rosenbaum on the registry before, and they said yes. And they were notified he is now deceased. So see their responses below. There was a Joseph Rosenbaum on the Sex Offender Registry in the state of Wisconsin. The Department of Corrections was notified by a medical examiner that the Joseph Rosenbaum we had in the registry is deceased. So that would have happened in the state of Arizona as well. The conviction was 2002. It gives his nickname as JoJo, which is why these idiots look as stupid as they do. Do you realize where everybody got this name from? A sex offender registry. And it's just incredible how we are completely consumed by our ideological biases to the point where we are sacrificing what we're, I don't mean liberal as liberal versus conservative. I mean liberal in the traditional sense. Liberal values that are supposed to be foundational to our society, system of government. It just simply to a group of people like this, and thank God Twitter is not a real place. It's impossible for these people to process anything outside of this thinking. They just can't do it. They can't get past it. They're not capable of looking at anything through a lens other than their ideology, other than their filter. Oh, look, Laura is in there. Yeah, I mean, Laura, for the love of God, what does that even say about our culture and our entertainment where somebody like Mark Ruffalo is the Hulk? Can we get a non-pedo cheerleader to play the Hulk, please? Then again, what does it say about our society to have somebody like Kamala Harris as our vice president? I don't care what you think. Yeah, Parnell is. I was going to talk about Parnell soon. It is important. I'll come back to what I was saying. But his ex-wife was awarded, or his girlfriend awarded full custody based on what had happened, which is that she alleges domestic abuse, and she did get the children. So we will have to wait and see what happens there. But I think it is very wise that Republicans in Pennsylvania find somebody else. And I'm not saying I know the guy or what happened there. It really doesn't matter. You don't put any one man ahead of anything. Pennsylvania is absolutely a state. Yeah, you can. For those who don't know, the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic regions, they absolutely defer to the women quite a bit. And I would love to see those police reports to see, because oftentimes that flatly is enough. We'll have to see. I wouldn't. I don't know Sean Parnell, so nothing surprises me. Nothing would surprise me. I'm dying to get in here and crunch this poll. But again, I just have to point out, though, the hypocrisy of some of these Republicans. And Laura, deal with me, because I know we talked about this. Just deal. Slobs like Eric Erickson are constantly bashing the Federalists for things like Brandy Love having a column. But they have nothing to say about the behavior of the vice president, because they're too damn afraid to touch it. They're just scared. It's not that her behavior is any better. Is it? Is it? At least Brandy Love is open. She's not good enough to be a Republican, according to the DC elites. At least she's open about what she is. She's not trying to pretend she's something else, but then using the same things to get what she wants. Frankly, I have more respect for the person who does it out in the open. This is who I am. This is what I do. Than somebody who does the same damn thing for professional gain anyway. She wreck any homes? Kamala did. Yeah, he's a slob. He's disgusting. And who the hell are they anyway? People like him. Who the hell are they anyway to say one person is or is not good enough to be in their party? It isn't your party. If it was your party, Donald Trump would not have won the nomination twice. Your guys lost. Something tells me Donald Trump would be a little bit more open. And besides, anyway, that is fake Christian crap. Your job is not to judge. You don't have to approve of it. But I don't remember Jesus saying, judge him or her. She's not good enough for you. This is a guy who invited the most hated people into his inner circle. The tax collector. The fornicator. And so slobs like Eric Erickson telling everybody what it is and is not mean to be a good Christian. Robert, now that you're back, I got a question for you. I wonder if Eric Erickson can answer me this. Why is Brandy Love not good enough to be a Republican, but he has nothing to say about the vice president of the United States who does the same did the same damn thing to get to be where she is? At least one is that by occupation and does those acts for occupation. One does it secretly to advance her occupation. I actually have more respect for the one than I do over the other.
Yeah, I mean, I think a much greater threat to the Republic are all the war whores Eric Erickson likes to hang out with.
Goddamn right.
So, what is ambrosia? Apparently, it's the least liked food, Thanksgiving food, but I have no idea what it is.
Oh my God, why? Where'd that come from?
I just emailed it to you. They did a poll of the least liked.
Oh, you did? Oh, let me get it.
And it's like ambrosia is the least popular in 5 of the 6 regions. I guess people must not make cranberry sauce right, because if you make cranberry sauce
Signal.
right, that should be that should not be one of the least favorite foods, but apparently it is in a good number of places. Now, I agree with green bean casserole being a least favorite food. I've never understood that. My mom liked to make it, my sisters like to make it. I never got it. I was like, I don't idea green bean casserole, just don't get it. But
Laura makes it. She does. It's been tradition, and actually hers is basically the only one I'll eat. I'm not a huge fan of it.
Yeah.
It's just tradition. I'm more with the stuffed mushrooms, which is like an Italian thing to add to it. Italians have like pasta too on Thanksgiving. Don Smith's about to find out. It's not just turkey over here, man.
Yeah, that'd be a good combo. So
man,
corn
it's
is
awesome.
Basically the most popular because it's not the least favorite. I get that. I think stuffing and dressing should be more popular than glazed carrots. But it appears that ambrosia is by far the least popular in almost every region. What is ambrosia?
Well, D. Zeal says ambrosia or a savory. I do know what it is, and I've had it before. I just don't know what it actually is. Ambrosia or savory aspic gelatins are some of the most unique American cuisine I've ever encountered. I like them a lot. Citrus salad with coconut, delicious. Yeah, that does sound good. Warren Peace loves green bean casserole. I also,
it's salad.
Yeah, I guess it's like.
I
And
have
look,
heard of
Mid-Atlantic.
ambrosia salad. I just haven't heard of it outside of the context of salad.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I can't believe, the ambrosia salad is the most popular form of ambrosia. I had it with I think there was fruits in it or something. I'm serious. I think
Yeah,
it was
now that rings a bell.
clementines or
Oh,
tangerines
somebody
or
said you can make
something.
it with marshmallows?
What? What?
Marshmallow cream and oh, okay. I can
And
get into that.
yeah, Benjamin Birch said my mom made it with a cucumber aspic. It was damn good. I bet I'm Greek too. I got some Greek in me, so I love me some tzatziki. I'll tell you, if that is what I think it is, it probably is good. I love him, bro. A lot of people love it. Wow, you went fruit, Cool Whip, and marshmallow. Somebody said, "What? If that's
sounds
true?"
good, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a
have
little bit
had that
surprised.
somewhere along the way.
Yeah,
'Cause I go to
you
different
probably
families'
did.
houses at different time for Thanksgiving over the years. Now the question is meat. I was always a big
Yeah.
turkey guy, but then once you've had like smoked ham and smoked turkey and like some of that,
Oof.
I mean that my brother-in-law makes, that is really, really that takes it to a whole nother level.
I was going to try. I got a fryer, got a deep fryer. I threw it out. I mean, just I never used
Yeah,
it, and
you
it
did.
started.
I've had the deep. I've also had Sichuan, a special duck made from Chinese spices illegally imported into the United States. That was actually
That sounds good.
It was outlandishly good. The spices were just perfect. So
I like duck, Robert, a lot. I love turducken too. If you can make a good turducken, it's awesome. But Laura never had duck. I don't know why or how until maybe about 6 months ago. No, it was for our anniversary. Yeah, it was for our anniversary. It wasn't 6 months ago. It was 3 months ago. And she'd never have duck. And I brought her to this place called the Ruddy Duck. It's in Morehead City. If you're in Morehead City, go check out the Ruddy Duck because it's absolutely fantastic. And they make this Italian kind of like seafood stew dish that I love to death. But on the menu, they had duck legs. And I'm like, Laura, you got to try these things. And they were made like Asian, Asian spices. She crushed them. She was like, oh my God, ducks are succulent. And I was like, I told you, they're delicious. It's different. It's like a fattier but sweeter kind of meat, and look, I still, though, at our house, we still do the traditional turkey. It's just done the way Laura does it, which I'm not going to give anything away. But I mean, she cooks the best. It's not just turkey. It's any kind of fowl. Like this girl just kills it. Like, Cornish hens. What's the other one? Quail. I mean, just regular, a chicken, a roasted chicken. And then her turkey is just to die for. So I'll never get rid of it because I love it, and we just have other things too.
Do pumpkin pie, pecan pie?
Pumpkin and pecan and maybe a Dutch apple or something, but we can't find pecan pie already pre-made, which normally Laura makes the pumpkin. She does it. She's to tell you what, man. And she's about, that's right, it's Monday. Oh, I get the warm-up batches coming tomorrow, I think. Oh, yeah. That's the one where it's the taste tester. My daughter's like, oh, that's right. Absolutely. Yeah, because, you got to make them, you got to make one or two first to make sure you don't blow it. You know what I mean? And pecan, really love, or pecan. I don't know how people say it in the South. How do you say that in the South, Robert? How is it really supposed to? Is it pecan in the South?
Pecan, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm from the North. We say pecan pie, but I keep getting corrected. Yeah. I keep getting corrected. Pecan, but we love that. We just can't find it anywhere. So my dad used to make it. I may take a crack at it but I'm not a good baker. I can cook, but I can't bake for crap, man. I never really was good at baking. I need to try. Maybe, try. I'll get better at it, but I don't know.
Had a great Thanksgiving last year with Kelly in Vegas. Kelly Stewart, who was
oh yeah,
Yeah, he's now at Barstool Sports and has been on like a crazy run. Like just parlay bet after parlay bet after parlay bet, keeps cashing. Um, but yeah, and that was a great Thanksgiving because she had like a huge spread and a combination of different kinds of foods and appetizers, and then wine and champagne and the whole. I mean, I passed out basically midway through somewhere at the woke up, on one of her couches. And with football now, is your family tradition? Well, what is like me growing up? It was always footballs on TV in the afternoon. You had a big meal. You have football going on before the meal, football going on during the meal, football going on after the meal. That was kind of the tradition, and usually a movie or two at night, or we would go out if something cool came out in the theaters.
It used to be football, and then we've had recent problems with football, and we have like switched over to like Christmas stuff runs, like like Hallmark is on because they do like the countdown to Christmas start. And between my mother-in-law and my mother, they got me liking it, I'll tell you. And and then also what was always big for us, and Laura and I haven't been able to find it, when we were kids and we've known each other that long, we would go over each other's house, or she really would come to mine. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was always on. And that was a tradition, but we can't find it anymore. And then I think You'll Shoot Your Eye Out starts on Thanksgiving, or at least one of them. It
Christmas
plays
Story,
Ralphie. Yeah, Christmas Story. And that'll be so we'll find something usually like that. But, the go-to there, unless the Giants are playing, it's like a must-see game. It's all about Hallmark. And I told Don that too. I was like, look, you're coming. I mean, I don't know, because I think he did like NASCAR or something was his, I don't know. But I'm like, this is this is how it's going to go. So make sure you got plenty of Oktoberfest to get through it. And that's something, of course, this is not BYOB, but it's just, that's the way it is. But it's nice. It keeps it in the mood. Plus, I do help. Laura does most of it over the period of a couple of days, but I do the mushrooms, stuffed mushrooms. Her yams are awesome, which I see there. I never was a yam guy when I was young. And 10.2% said sweet potato casserole, which, hey, Laura, that's yams, isn't it?
Yes, baby.
And
first,
nowhere.
Wait, back to what Robert said. Yes, football, but first, Christmas parade.
Oh, that's right. The Christmas. Yeah, but I started to boycott that recently. I did.
You mean, that's right. Macy's is on Thanksgiving, isn't it?
Yeah, and we used to love Macy's, but now look at them. I basically won't support anything New York City's doing anymore. I just
do
won't.
like a tranny blend.
Yeah, and Robert, I'm afraid to let my children watch anything these people put on at this point. God knows what they're gonna do. Right? It's gonna be like everyone put your hands together for the what is that? The New Bedford tranny marching band or something. Yeah. It's like, whoa, no thank you. Right. It'll be like a bad episode of Hightown in the middle of the Macy's Day Parade. No way, man.
And don't forget about the Pumpkin King. Not the pumpkin.
What are you talking about?
Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah, like if we could find like Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. That's the kids thing though. During the day, that'll all be watched later at night. During the day, what's just kind of running is that, and usually the countdown to Christmas thing. But yeah, it used to be football and Willy Wonka when I was young. That's what it was.
And the Greek movies.
Yeah. What Greek? Yes. My grandfather, he wasn't he was a baseball fan. So he'd be in his den and he'd always be watching Jason and the Argonauts. You remember those Greek,
Medusa.
Medusa. Yeah. Oh, wow. Jason and the Golden Fleece, whatever it was. And that stuff, you can't really find that anymore either.
No,
it's
that's
not
true.
there anymore, Robert.
I mean, I guess now, how is the left going to handle Thanksgiving? Because usually they hate Thanksgiving increasingly. And do they like not even celebrate it now? I mean, what does your like lefty Manhattanite do on Thanksgiving?
It's kind of funny because we were going to ask that question. And I just thought in the end, the election stuff was probably more important. So the questionnaire got so big and I dumped it. But I was thinking, I was going to ask whether people were afraid of, celebrating Thanksgiving with family and friends because of COVID. And I was going to show that overwhelmingly, I already knew what it was going to be. Overwhelmingly, it would be like Metro liberals with post-grad degrees, blah, 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 blah. I have some family still left in New York City, and the last 2 years they've left to go to family in Jersey or something, or to go visit somewhere else. Their friends are generally not doing anything. They're really not. It's crazy. And my one uncle, he usually has 2 Thanksgivings. He'll go and visit, and then he'll have Thanksgiving in Queens. But none of that group of people is friends, because I don't want to blow him up. Some people could easily. He once was a public figure, so I don't want to blow him up. But whether he liked them or not was irrelevant. Robert, with his job, he had to like hang with the group, because it was just part of the city's officials. I'm trying to be vague here, but what his position was, he had to hang out with these people, and it's just not the way it was anymore. These people will sit on their couch in their mask with a hungry man or something before they go and look like they're being super spreaders. I mean, I'm serious. If they had a choice, that's the kind of people they are. It's crazy. What are you gonna do? How's Robert spending Thanksgiving?
It depended wherever I was. So this year I'll be in Tennessee, and we'll do one with one side of the family, and then
that's
I
nice.
get in like Thanksgiving Day, so we'll do one event with son and daughter, and another event the next day with nieces and nephews on the other side of the family. So they're all good cooks, so I look forward to it.
Yeah, that was always when I was a kid too. It was great. Everybody moved especially in Jersey at that time, because everybody had moved from New York, the Exodus, and there was like Italians, Polish, whatever it may be, and you got all sorts of crazy stuff, and you had multiple Thanksgivings, really in the same day, even. What time's your family eating? What time's your family eating? Oh my goodness! Look what she did. Look. It's a pumpkin pie. Oh, don't mind if I do. Oh, boy.
If it tasted bad, he'd say that because he's a mayor.
That's outrageously good, Laura.
Hey, Barnes, you're more than welcome.
You got family engagement, but anytime, brother, anytime.
Any particular spices or anything that's sort of unique or distinct?
Laura, anything particular, unique, or distinct you want to reveal?
Unique or distinct in
how you made that pie? That was
I'll
good.
give you one thing that.
Go ahead. Good. She's gonna share one thing. Let's go.
Little extra ingredient. Most people, they do all the clove and the nutmeg. Most people don't put nutmeg in it. I do.
She puts nutmeg in it too.
But you have to be careful. With
but
your
you got to be careful, because you can overpower it.
That's a very
pie is outrageous.
And there's another thing I put in it that other people don't, and I can't tell you that.
Yeah, there's something else in that pie.
You're gonna have to get like one of your children to marry my children to get that.
That's one of those. And the crust was really, really delicious. I mean, sometimes the pie crust will just kill it, man. It's like dry or something, or worse. It's not dry. It's like flat, and there's no texture or body to it, no flavor. It's kind of just like, that was good. And you know what else we'll do? One thing, which is recent, my son and I just started to do since we built the house, make our own apple cider. And, when we were kids, especially when we would go like upstate New York, all of these like salt of the earth people cut their own trees. They made their own cocoa. They did all their own stuff. And we did this, like Macintosh versus Honeycrisp versus Red Delicious. So my son and I are on the hunt right now. What is the perfect apple cider? I'll be flatly honest with everybody. Last year, the very first batch I made, I drank too much that night. And I have no clue what I did. And I was just like, little Red Delicious, little Honeycrisp, a few galas, it's going nuts. Threw a little bit of citrus in there, cut up a few navel. I think that was one key, is that it was a navel orange, like Florida navel orange, instead of a regular orange. And it gave the citrus pop to it. And then I could not duplicate it the next day when we ran out. People were like, make another batch. And I couldn't do it, man. It was good, but it wasn't like, whoa, good, But that's, it's the some stuff we try to do, man, to keep it fun. But I was like, Nico, what on earth were you thinking? Why didn't you keep track of what Daddy was doing? And he was like, are you kidding me? Your hands, they were moving so fast. There's just no way I couldn't have wrote it down if I wanted to, Dad. You were just kind of throwing stuff everywhere, cut this, throw that. And yeah, I did it. It was like midnight too, but it was on break. So whatever, he was up with me. And yeah, I'm going to give it a crack again. But, we'll see. But that's always fun. I love cider, man. You're a cider guy? I love cider. Yes. Alcoholic, non-alcoholic. I love cider. It's just that was like some people had cocoa. I had cider.
You can do it cold or hot too.
Yep. And I like the hot one, especially when it's cold out. And we go outside and play in the snow as kids. When we came in, a lot of people like hot cocoa. I always went for the cider, man. That was it. Christmas trees, go out and get a tree, cider. So it was, people are like, yeah, I love apple cider, spiced apple cider. Yep, that's where it's at. And this is gonna be cool again. I guess soon we'll be headed out west to go get another tree. I had to drive because, no joke, ladies and gentlemen, Barack Obama and Joe Biden 9 years ago killed the Christmas tree market. They were trying to pay
I represented the Christmas tree king. That they
did you really
caused the whole host
I didn't know that.
He had like 80% of Christmas trees in America. Lived in Florida. Hired a bunch of French Canadians. Ran out of New York City, and he's subject to all this harassment that led to a problems with getting Christmas trees into the States ever since.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There you go. And what I was, the gentleman who gave me the tree said that one of the kickers they did to them, if you basically fought it or tried to get around what they were doing, there was this pesticide that is, he admittedly said it could be pretty wicked stuff. Like, you can't not know what you're doing with it. But most people do if you're a grower of trees. But they didn't back Biden and Obama. They didn't back them, give them money. But you know who did? Strawberry farmers. And the same pesticide strawberry farmers use is the same one they needed. And the EPA just basically refused to allow that much out on the market. And they would never allow the tree growers to get it because they wanted the strawberry people to get what was available. So all of the saplings for those years had been killed. So the tree I got last year was years old and it had been growing on the side of a mountain. He said it hurt him. There were no local tree lots, nothing, which you obviously know. I had no idea that was going to happen.
Yep. Do you guys go and cut down your own tree?
I would if I could, but I would love to do that with the kids, but we didn't because what we found, I was like, look, I need like a 9-footer at least, big, fat. He just said, I'll go up to the mountain, I'll get it, I'll cut. He cut it so damn fresh, Robert. There was a bird's nest in it. It was awesome. I'm like, what the hell? Leave it in there. It's perfect. It was incredible. It was the nicest tree, and I'll upload pictures and show people. It was the nicest tree I've ever had, and it's a tree that I'm not like a fan of. It was a Fraser fir, and we used to get them at Lowe's if we had no choice in Florida. I'm not a big fan of them, like balsam firs and like what is that other one? The noble fir. I love nobles, but you can't always get them. And this Fraser fir didn't look like a normal Fraser fir. It wasn't like a commercial one you would see from Home Depot, man, or Lowe's. This puppy was huge, and it was beautiful. I didn't even know Fraser firs could look that nice. It was awesome. Yep. And that's the next trip. And I said, you know what? Next year, just because he came through for me like that, next year, well, I'll hop in the car. I'll go to. It takes about 3 hours to get up those mountains, and we're gonna do it again. It was fun. It was fun. The hell else you got to do on Christmas break, right? Let's go get the tree. Take a as long as the kids aren't screaming in the car the whole damn way, I'm game, man. I'm game. So, with that, it's almost 4:00. Speaking of the kid, so what do you got going on this week? How long are you gonna, you and Viva gonna do your stuff? Is Thanksgiving gonna throw you off?
Interviewing Blake Masters on Wednesday.
Oh, you got him.
Yeah, we did. So that'll be a lot
Well,
of fun.
tell them to call me for Inside the Numbers for the crying out loud.
Yes, exactly.
Nice.
So that should be fun, and hope to see continued more people like him, and then we'll be in Tennessee, and then in Texas the week after that. So got some stuff coming up, but I think the best news for Thanksgiving is that Kyle Rittenhouse is a free man and gets to have a real Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I totally agree. They could have went a different way. That would have been horrible for that kid and his family. Yeah, and I'll check out. I'll make sure I'm going to be checking out that interview. I'm really was impressed with that guy. Speaking his interview with Tucker over the Rittenhouse case, he knocked it out of the park. And he's a campaigner. He's a worker, man. He's a worker. You know,
he's got good populist instincts. So want to see him do well in Arizona, because I think that's a seat that can flip.
Yeah, me too. I don't think Arizona is anywhere near blue, as Mark Kelly's margin was like outsized. I really do believe that. McSally was a uniquely bad candidate, and they should have known that. They got to stop with these appointments that they think can, somehow drag with it the power of the incumbency. That's ridiculous. Somebody like a Blake Masters. Do you remember that vote that Trump was getting in Arizona that McSally was not? They were like working class, no college degree, independent, could be moderate or conservative. McSally and Kelly were basically tied, splitting that. And Biden was getting crushed with those same voters by Trump. And somebody like Masters will have much stronger appeal to that group of people. Without a doubt, man. Without a doubt. So
and
that'd be
Democrats
cool.
continue to bleed Mexican-American voters and middle-class, middle America suburbanites that Biden made a lot of inroads with are flipping back aggressively. And so I think Arizona is going to be a flip seat come 2022. So that'll be good news. But hopefully everybody has a good, happy Thanksgiving, continues to celebrate Thanksgiving in the American way, in the American tradition, and have a good holiday season to kickstart things off, despite where things are economically and otherwise. The Kyle Rittenhouse acquittal was sort of a nice white pill for the whole holidays.
It sure was. Well put. And thanks for joining us as always, my friend. If I don't, I'll see you before. But happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you soon.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye, Robert.
All right, everybody. Don't forget, vivabarneslaw.locals.com. And, of course, you can follow me. It's right there, peoplespundit.locals.com. Keep an eye peeled. I'm going to go and crunch the Public Polling Project. Thanks for watching What Are the Odds with Barnes and Baris.
With slice of pie.
Happy Thanksgiving. See you next week.
Turkey Day.
The lights that shine down over dotted lines of white across an